Good Tuesday morning, everybody, and welcome to the Volquest podcast. I'm Eric Kane with Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, and Austin Price. It is presented, as always, by our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions. For a free estimate, give them a call today at 865-524-5888. Those summer storms can get you in a bind if you need any type of home improvements, siding, roofing, whatever the case may be. Give them a call, Exterior Home Solutions, 865-524-5888, or visit them online, exteriorhomesolutions.com. Got a whole lot to get into here today. Going to talk a little recruiting. A massive recruiting weekend is coming up here on Memorial Day. Just going to talk a little running back, the run game in Josh Heupel's offense, and when the last time Tennessee had an exceptional one, and then, of course, Tennessee baseball in Hoover, Alabama this week, getting play started here on a Tuesday against Texas A&M, and then from there, we will have to see. But to start things off, let's talk a little recruiting, Austin Price. The Memorial Day event is kind of what we're talking about. Big weekend shaping up for Tennessee as we look back last year. Maybe no commitments that day, but it really planted the seed for a lot that came in later in June and July.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're going for here. I'm not going to say that one or two guys don't get the feels over the weekend, but what I'm saying is you establish yourself. I think you're kind of already established, but you kind of reestablish yourself heading into official visits. And so for Jaden Riddell, he just was in Athens. Obviously, he likes Rayola. Need to have a big weekend here. You're going to have several guys around him. That's a big deal. You look at the list. I mean, you got Caleb Beasley. He's the Vol commit. Chase Tyler's one I think you watch. I think Tennessee's going to start to push hard there. Melo Jones, the Georgia commit. That's a bit of a long shot. Boo Carter will be in town. That's a big deal. I look further on this. Having Carson Gentle in, having any of the committed guys in, I think helps just because they can kind of, push on those guys and kind of impress upon them how important it is to be a part of the class. Cam Fountain, that's one that Rodney likes a ton. I think that's a big deal, getting him up here this weekend. That one's going to be a big boy battle in that one. You look, elsewhere. I love Jaden Riddell, having him in town along with Jonathan Eccles. Those guys know about each other. So it's not like that, this isn't 1997 or whatever hubs where Travis Henry, Travis Stevens, and Jamal Lewis didn't know each other, right, before they got here. This is a different deal. Having Merklinger here is big. Peyton Lewis, that's one to watch. Daniel Hill, he's this year's Noah Rogers. If he shows up, he's no longer this year's Noah Rogers for me. Amari Jefferson, that's important to get him here. Again, I will continue to reiterate, Amari Jefferson is as important a recruit in this class as there is. Mike Matthews, that's great. Ryan Wingo, that's great. But a kid's an hour and 20 minutes down the road. You got to figure out a way to get that one done. If you get that one done and you can put one of those other guys with him and then hold on to J.J. Harrell, that's a phenomenal haul. Ronan O'Connell, back hubs, and I think that's a big deal because he was here back, probably about 6-8 weeks ago. To me, you got to reestablish kind of where you were, which was the team that, had a lot of momentum with him when he was last visiting.
Yeah, and I think with the interesting thing with Ronan is just kind of who else is really in it and where, what other schools is he truly diving into? We got to get that picture changed. Poor Ronan. I'm sorry, dude, man. That's not even close to what you look like these days. I feel bad for that photo. I got to get that swapped out. That's totally on me. But Austin, who else is really in it, right? Is the Big Ten going to come calling hard? A lot of people have said, this is a Tennessee laydown when you look at some other schools there. But I think the Big Ten, some of those Big Ten schools will be interesting to watch potentially with Ronan O'Connell.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I still lean Tennessee pretty heavily there, but he does have some ties up north. Does Notre Dame come calling? If they come calling, then I think that would be an eye opener for him. There's no doubt about that. And the other one that I would, if he makes it in, again, all these are subject to change, but if he makes it in, is linebacker Tylen Singleton. I've continued to say for 2 months that Tennessee had a ton of momentum with Tylen Singleton. And you look at TCU, look at LSU, but that one right there is one that I think bears watching immensely because I think, he and Edwin Spillman both going to be in here this weekend. And I know what the RPM says, but that ain't accurate. So, Tylen Singleton, I think is a Vol lean at this point as we head towards the end of May. But again, doesn't matter. Vol lean, not Vol lean. You got to figure out a way to get them in the boat.
And Rob, what a life we live when the Memorial Day weekend is arguably the biggest weekend in recruiting because of what it establishes from a foundation standpoint.
It really is nuts, Brent, when you think about just the time, the way, everything gets, not just gets now, but is accelerated. And you're not just talking about the 24s. I mean, there's going to be action on, 2025 kids, that weekend. I'm sure probably some select 26 kids. It's a brand new world, that's for sure, from the time when Eric Kane was coming out as a hot shot recruit.
Hey, Austin, kind of on that note, last year there wasn't many 24s. How many 25s and 26s will be in town?
I don't think any. Like, I think this is just straight 24s. If there are, they're not on the list that I got. But either way, I mean, it's a healthy list, healthy dose of big time guys. And again, that list subject to change. I think there could be one or two other big time guys like a Dylan Stewart make it to town. Again, that list is who I think could make it. There's a few that have indicated they might be here, but it doesn't really. You don't want to get the hopes up of anybody. So you kind of we'll play a wait and see approach with some of those guys. But we'll see if a Dylan Stewart or somebody like that makes it to town this weekend. But either way, it's a massive recruiting weekend. Rob's right about that, and just how much it's changed in the last 3 or 4 years, much less the last 15 or 20. It's really night and day, and Rob's right about it's a lot different than when what did they call the Memorial Day event when you were coming out of Jeff County to go over to Carson Newman? What they call that, the Mossy Creek Magic, or what was that?
I like the Mossy Creek Magic. That's a good way to phrase it.
Hey, AP, let me ask you about two guys. I mean, I think I know where you are on Sammy Brown, right? I know he's going to visit and all those things, but he certainly is. Tennessee is trailing pretty significantly there. Why does Daniel Calhoun keep coming back? What's because it feels like Tennessee's probably third there at best. What's the story with Daniel Calhoun?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee's third at best. Big, massive offensive lineman from down near Atlanta. I'm just not sure he fits what Tennessee does.
I'm surprised.
I agree.
I'm just surprised he keeps coming back. Is kind of what I was getting at. I mean, it seems interesting that that one. I mean, he was here for an unofficial visit. Back a few months ago. It just seems kind of odd to me that he continues to return because it doesn't feel like that's Tennessee, but that's just me.
I think he likes the recruiting process.
Okay.
And I think, it's not that he's not one that's a glory hound, but I think he loves to go see people, visit people. I think he likes to take trips and I think he likes Glenn Ellerbe in Tennessee. Now, is it enough to pass Georgia and Alabama? I would lean no, but at the same time, I mean, he does keep showing up, and Tennessee's been to see him, and we'll kind of see where they go from there. But to me, if you were saying, what kind of words he had on Tennessee's offensive line board, I don't think he's the top target, and I think that's Brandon Baker. But again, getting a kid here from California is a tall task either.
All right, my last recruiting question, Eric. Then we'll roll on to the next topic or whatever. But my last one to you, Austin, is you mentioned Amari Jefferson, and I'm with you. I think Amari Jefferson is as big of a priority as anybody is in this class for Tennessee. Where is Tennessee with that one? What is kind of who are they fighting? What does that really look like? You think at this point with Amari Jefferson?
I mean, I think it's it's really a three-headed monster. It's Georgia, it's Alabama, and it's Tennessee. And again, I would not consider those percentages to be correct. But again, that's all based off of metric and all that stuff. So, I personally think that this is, a rather bit of a coin flip at this point. If you said kind of where's it at, I would say it's right around 33% for everybody. I think that this is something where, Tennessee has done a nice job of showing him how important he is to the class the last month or two. And, Kelsey Pope's done a nice job recruiting him, and we'll see kind of where things fall. But if he makes it in town this weekend, that means he'll see Tennessee twice over the next 30 days, counting his official visit. And he's told me that, he hopes to do something in the month of July. So, I like Tennessee's chances if he makes it in this weekend. and having 2 visits in the next 30 days.
And baseball's not a factor at all anymore?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, he picked Tennessee, baseball when he committed to them for a reason. But I mean, yeah, I think he sees football as his future. The baseball thing, I think's, a blip on the radar or something that, all schools go say, yeah, you can play both. Sure. Just like they always do with all these kids.
Trayvon Flowers approach, right?
That's right. Trayvon was a heck of an outfielder until he wasn't.
I do have one more before we move on to another topic. Late last week, Tennessee does get a final commit and then a signing for the 2023 class, Emmanuel Okoye, which we've known is going to happen for a long time. Anything else on him? It feels like Alec Ablam was instrumental in getting him here to Tennessee, tied in his future, but a nice raw talent who could have a very high ceiling.
Yeah, we'll see where he's. I mean, I lean to tight end. That's where he'll start, but I don't think that's by any stretch of the imagination some lock that's all he's going to play. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's really ever played tight end. So good looking athlete, long. What's he like blocking? What's he like running route subs? What's he like catching the ball? I mean, all things that you have to do to play tight end. So we'll see kind of where things go, but I would lean to him starting on the offensive side. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, my question, Rob, is, I mean, where is he from a football IQ standpoint? He's only played,
1 year.
1 year of football. I label him as an athlete because I think this first year for him is truly a redshirt year, and it's a redshirt year where you're trying to figure out where he fits in for you best and what he can do, because he's as unpolished of a high school guy coming in as Tennessee's had in a while. It doesn't mean he's a bad athlete at all. It's just he's not done 7-on-7s. He's not done he doesn't have 10 years of football under his belt.
Yeah, he's just not played it since he was a little kid. I think it's tough on the football side of things. I mean, and it's still in the infancy when you talk about the international prospects compared to what it is in basketball. But it's not really equivalent because they don't even if it's not like soccer, overseas. I mean, basketball is still a big deal. I mean, Europe has a big league. It's Africa. Kids grow up playing that sport, and it's just not the same in football. And I know we have a limited sample size. Who just Chris Ikperogade, but I mean, I think you're going to see more and more of it, but of kids. That get identified early on and come up through these academies. But what you're talking about, Hubbard, the football IQ, how natural the game is to him. I mean, that's a big hurdle.
If he's playing this fall, Rob, then, he's either his athleticism just is so off the charts that it just bypasses his inexperience and to do everything. Or Tennessee's had a ton of injuries at a particular position.
I mean, look, and again, I'm not criticizing anything, but I mean, he's playing football on a soccer field. There's no hash marks. There's no yard lines. I'm just saying in terms of understanding the game and talking about just getting on a board and talking the game of football. I mean, there's just a lot he's going to have to learn regardless of whatever position he's playing, because there's things he just hasn't seen in football because he's not played the game that way.
And who's he playing against there, right? I mean,
right.
What kind of players are playing for these schools? I mean, that's just something I don't think anybody can know.
It'll be interesting to watch how he progresses. He'll be on campus here in just a couple of days at the start of June for workouts and ultimately try to figure out his role for 2023 and then beyond here for Tennessee. I want to shift gears. I want to talk about the Tennessee run game. Not that it's been bad under Josh Heupel. Quite the contrary. We've discussed how everybody thinks this is an air raid, throw it all over the place, which Tennessee does throw it around. Tennessee also runs the football, but Tennessee hasn't had a 1,000-yard rusher in a bit. Anybody want to guess the last 1,000-yard rusher? It's not that hard, but
Jalen Hurd.
Jalen Hurd, what year?
2015.
Jalen Hurd, 2015. 1,288 yards. The last Tennessee running back that has surpassed the 1,000-yard total. Tennessee's come close a couple of times. Josh Dobbs actually ran over for 1,000, but if you count in the sacks and all that, he was down. Of course, he's a quarterback. Jabari Small came close in 2021. If he was healthy, maybe he gets it. Jalen Wright and Jabari Small both have been over 500 yards in their first two seasons here. will Tennessee get a 1,000-yard rusher this year? And does the two-man system Heupel uses kind of alleviate one of those guys from getting to that mark?
I think it's the most overblown stat out there, 1,000-yard rusher. I think you got to look at what your total rushing yards are, what your average per carry, those types of things. Because I think in this day and age, if I'm a running back and you know, these guys are more polished than they've ever been, I'm not looking to go somewhere and get 30 carries a game. I don't want to be wore out when I come out of high school or when I come out of college. I'm fine with a platoon system and a couple of guys. So I don't know that they'll have one unless somebody just gets really hot or you have some injuries. I mean, you look at this running back room right now, they're deeper than they've been. So it probably makes less sense for them to have a 1,000-yard rusher this year than it would have been the last couple of years. But I look at what Josh Heupel's doing in the run game, and they're running it really, really well, whether it's with 2 people or 3 people or whatever the case may be. So I think that stat has gone a little bit by the wayside in the college game because I don't think it's as big of a benchmark as it used to be because people just don't want to wear guys out.
I think you're seeing that it's a trickle-up effect as well in the NFL. I mean, there are just a couple of guys who are dudes at the running back position who is, you know, RB1 in the National Football League. The rest kind of go by committee or kind of have a two-headed monster or whatever the case may be. And I think you're seeing that in both levels of football. Tennessee hadn't had a 1,000-yard rusher since 2015. Josh Heupel had a 1,000-yard rusher in 2018 at UCF, and then he had 2 different ones at Missouri while being the offensive coordinator of the Tigers back in 2017 and 2016. I agree with you, though, Brent. I think it's one of the more overblown stats, but still, you know, for Tennessee to, you know, be successful, if you have a 1,000-yard rusher, Austin, I think that shows growth. I think that shows balance in this offense. And Tennessee does have the guys who are capable of doing it, but, you know, Wright's going to play, Small's going to play, Sampson's going to play. And, you know, neither one of those 3 might play enough to get it or should get it.
I see those pictures of Jalen Hurd, and I'm like, that kid in 2.5 years. Now, granted, he had 1 trillion carries in 2.5 years. He almost set the single season or the career rushing mark at Tennessee. You know, and it just had this weird exit, and then when played receiver at Baylor. But no, I mean, you're right. I mean, I don't think Tennessee will have a 1,000-yard rusher this year, not unless somebody has one of those massive games and then just, you know, a bunch of solid ones. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you get one of those, like, 225-yard performance, all of a sudden it's like, okay, that puts me, you know, in a really good spot. The problem with, you know, the Heupel's offense scores so fast in those blowout games against lesser competition, unless you have a big run, it's hard to pile up a lot of stats to me if you're the main guy. So, like, let's say Jalen Wright's the starter. Unless he has a big run, 50 or 60-yarder against, you know, the kind of the 3 gimmies, to me it's hard to see, you know, him getting more than 60 or 70 yards for the game just because I think Tennessee, the game will get out of hand and they'll just start platooning and you'll get Dylan Sampson some run, you'll get Cam Seldon some run, and so on and so forth. So, you know, I think if Jalen Wright runs between 800 and 1,000 this year, I think that's a good solid year because, again, I think what Hub said is correct. And you're going to have it balanced out that I just don't think you're going to see that. Now, the caveat of that is everybody stays healthy. Now, let's say one of them goes down. Let's say Jabari Small goes down. He's been injury prone with the shoulders and such. Let's say he goes down. I think that's when it changes. I think that the number of carries for, you know, Jalen Wright or something like that would go dramatically up. And so I think that's how you get to 1,000. But as long as everybody's healthy, I just don't see it.
Not a whole lot of 4-minute offense in this offensive scheme, Ron, for Josh Heupel.
Yeah, and I agree with everything those guys said. I mean, it looks to me like 3 guys are going to play. I mean, the way they finished last year, I mean, Dylan Sampson was as productive and dangerous as anybody. And I think we all were pretty high on Cam Seldon coming out of spring. I mean, I just think the number of capable bodies is my biggest, you know, reason to point to why they wouldn't have a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah, here's the other thing too. I mean, if somebody's getting 1,000 yards, okay, and they're getting, you know, the lion's share of the carries, okay, they're getting the bulk of the carries. then everybody's going to be asking, well, why aren't they playing? You know, where's Dylan Sampson or where's whoever the odd guy out is? And remember this too. This is Jerry Mack's challenge. Okay, because we talked about this, and well, Eric, you won't remember this, but Rob and I will, and AP will because he's got Morristown native in it. But in the day and age of the transfer portal, if that had existed 30 years ago, there's no way Little Man Stewart, Aaron Hayden, Charlie Garner, Mose Phillips were all splitting carries among four of them. Somebody's leaving, right? I mean, you had those two backs and Little Man and Aaron Hayden. What they did as a freshman, and then, oh, by the way, we're going to bring in the best JUCO back in the country on you. You know, you can go to the house, you can go sit out a year, or you can just lump it and like it. And they all stayed, which is an anomaly. And in this day and age, it's impossible to do. I think the biggest challenge is to keep multiple guys happy. And to do that, you better split the carries up. And that means you probably don't get a 1,000-yard rusher. Maybe I'm wrong in that, but that's the way I view it. Is you want to make sure all those guys are happy and getting enough run to justify, staying here and being a part of everything, because there's so much talk of everybody leaving every year. Roster management's so hard.
Well, I think that running back room, I think if Jalen Wright has a good solid year, I think he's gone. I think, don't want to put the wear and tear on him. If he has, let's say, 900 to 1,000 yards, I think he's gone. What happens with Jabari Small? Like, technically he can come back a year from now, but if his role has diminished some, does he try to go play his eligibility out somewhere else? Let's say those two play the most. Where's Dylan Sampson at heading into next year? Is he willing to stick around? And I mean, like, you hit the nail on the head, Brent. You have to balance and juggle these things. And, I think what you're likely to see is one or two of your favorite players on Tennessee's football team probably will go to the portal after this year. One or two of your favorite baseball players may go to the portal after this year. Same thing with basketball. I think that's just that way across the board. I think the football team not really having any serious defections to this point speaks to Hype's culture and the fact that the kids enjoy their time at Tennessee. But at some point, look at Bear Alexander at Georgia. He won 2 national titles. He had a phenomenal national championship game. What did he want, though? I mean, I've got 2 rings. Let's go get paid. And so he went to USC, and he got paid. So,
where would you guys rank the Tennessee running back group amongst the other groups in the Southeastern Conference? I mean, it's got to be towards the top. It might not be the top. I mean, Georgia loses some, but brings back a lot. Alabama has got a couple of guys. You've got Ole Miss, who has 2 pretty decent options. Arkansas comes to mind, but we continue to say, we continue to reiterate, this is the deepest Tennessee's running back room has been since Heupel's been here. You got 3 guys that can play right now. You got a freshman in Cam Selton that you would just want to see play. Deshaun Bishop even added depth this spring with a really nice spring. Where would you rank this group, Rob, amongst other SEC groups to your knowledge? And I don't expect you to be an expert on Arkansas's running back room, but just kind of overall.
I think it's going to, and again, I'm not remotely an expert on Arkansas's running back room or, any of those guys right now. But, I think Tennessee's, I would put it in the upper half of the SEC. I mean, I don't know that I wouldn't say you have one of the, top 5 or, maybe even 8 backs in the league. But I think you've got 4 quality guys that we've seen, really do some things. And, production wise, from what Jalen did last year, I think, he probably would be in the argument for me for one of the top 10 guys in the league. I like this group probably better than most, but also if you look around, the league, there's not a Derrick Henry type. I mean, who's probably the best guy coming back? The Jenkins kid at Ole Miss.
Or the Sanders guy at Arkansas.
Raheem Sanders at Arkansas. I mean, there's not a Derrick Henry or Leonard Fournette type talent in this league. So I wouldn't have a problem saying, Tennessee, because of the depth, has, one of the top 3 or 4 running back rooms in the league, but they don't have that bell cow right now, or at least, not someone who has established himself as that bell cow.
Yeah, I don't think there's a star in the room, but I think top to bottom, it's a really deep room. And though there might not be a 1,000-yard rusher, Austin, I think it's going to be solid that a lot of guys get over 500 yards, add to this offense and kind of roll the way it has in 21 and 2022.
It's good fodder for the summertime to talk about these running back rooms and kind of where they all are. I mentioned him last week. Jesse had his list. Tennessee was not in it. I think when you look at the totality of the room, Rob's right. That puts them in the conversation, right? Like there's not one guy that goes, yep, that's the guy. Tennessee's definitely, and it's the totality of the room. And the other thing I think you have to keep in mind is we can revisit this come next January, and Tennessee may or may not be in the upper half, depending on that offensive line, Brent. Like, they still need guys to block, and what's that left guard spot look like? What's the right tackle spot look like? How's John Campbell played? Has Cooper stayed healthy? Has Sprague stayed healthy? All those are factors to me that will determine whether this group is near the top or not.
Well, and the other factor that you got to throw in there too is what are our defenses in terms of respecting the quarterback run versus a year ago with Hendon Hooker's ability to run the football.
Yep.
Do they run Joe the same way, Rob? Do they tweak it? Do they run it less? Do they put more burden on the tailback and a little less on Hendon Hooker? I think those are some interesting dynamics to go with the offensive line that make some of the run game stuff really interesting for this team and good, as Austin said, fodder for this offseason.
Yeah, I'll be really surprised if they use Joe anywhere near what they used him to that. I know you have to take out what was a design carry, what was a quarterback scramble, but Hendon had 104 carries last year, and that's with missing 2 full games. I'll be really surprised if Joe gets if he sniffs triple digits.
There was only one game, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but there was only one game where I thought Hendon was and I think the play calling as well kind of backs up this argument. I think there's only one game where Hendon was like, all right, I'm going to do whatever I possibly can to win this game, whether it be throw it, whether it be run it, whether it be whatever, scramble, and that was Florida. I thought he ran the football really well against Florida. A couple of those are scrambles for sure, but a couple of those were designed. But more or less, a lot of his rushes were just escapability, extending plays, and trying to make something happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think they tried to be careful with him and not beat him up. They were much better about that this past year than they were the previous year, when I thought they ran him a lot in games.
At Missouri? Up 40 points? What?
With games in control. But, I think they were careful not to try to get him too beat up because he was so beat up with everything he had going on the previous year. But when it was critical time, I mean, they were running him, right? I mean, the play he got hurt on was a designed run because they were trying to win the football game at South Carolina. So maybe the plan going in wasn't necessarily to run him a lot, but as the game dictated itself, if you needed him, then they ramped it up. I mean, he ran it a decent amount against Alabama too. And so in the big games, when you had to have that play, they weren't afraid to go there. They just weren't going to get him beat up, in games where they were in control, which was a smart move on their part.
Yeah.
What did they do this year?
They'll do that this year too, Hubbard, just because, they're not real deep at the quarterback spot. Be very selective.
Yeah, I think they will do that some. I think the question is how effective is Joe as a runner compared to Hendon as a runner? I think that remains to be seen. Now, we saw the Clemson game. They ran the single wing look with him, kind of those sweeps on the end, and there was some effectiveness there. But I don't know, does Joe have the wiggle to run the quarterback draw as effectively as Hendon Hooker did? And if not, what's your counter to that? Is that more balls out in the flat to the running back to get them in space? Is that more jet sweeps with the Squirrel Whites of the world or a Cam Seldon? What do you do? I mean, I think that, Josh Heupel always talks about we can run this offense in a million different ways, right? Doesn't matter what the quarterback looks like. Big, tall, big arm, not a big arm, run, not run, all those things. How does this offense evolve and look different this year than last year based on the quarterback's legs? Okay, we know the receivers are going to be there. We know they're going to throw it. But how do they tweak things with the legs? They play it the same way that they did with Hooker, or is there some different stuff in there with Joe Milton, which could affect a bit of the run game numbers as well? Maybe if you're running less quarterback draws, it's more carries to the tailback. I don't know. We'll see. I'm with Rob. I don't think you're going to see 100+ carries out of Joe Milton this year.
And I think that's something that will continue to evolve as the season goes on, one way or the other. Tennessee should be one of the better running teams in the Southeastern Conference this year. We'll see if it pans out that way. A big recruiting weekend coming up, and Tennessee baseball in action at the SEC tournament at Hoover, Alabama. We'll touch base on that here in a moment. But first, a word from our proud sponsors, Exterior Home Solutions.
Your roof, it's the most important protection against nature for your home or your business. That's why I trust the experts at Exterior Home Solutions.
As always, thanks to our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. Be sure and check them out online for all of your needs. And again, we thank them for their support of the podcast. Tennessee baseball team is in Hoover, Alabama, as they get ready to take on Texas A&M to open SEC play. Single elimination to get started here. Tennessee gets the series win, Eric, at South Carolina. The takeaway is that they pitched the ball very well with the exception of Chase Burns. The question I have as they get things started now is how does Tony Vitello manage his pitching staff early in this tournament if they can survive in advance to get back to his starters? What are we doing here?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The rain did not help Tennessee out last weekend. You were going to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday. He got pushed to Friday, supposed to be a doubleheader, couldn't play a doubleheader, so doubleheader Saturday. That means Andrew Lindsay's start was pushed today. Chase Dolander's start was pushed today. And in the grand scheme of things, that's not that big of a deal, right? But when you're playing a tournament and you're starting on Tuesday, it's a very big deal. So that's one big thing. Secondly, the starting pitching, as you mentioned, was elite this weekend. And because it was elite, Tennessee only needed 4 bullpen arms. 2 of those guys they threw less than 9 pitches. A.J. Russell had 18 pitches, and then Chase Burns, he had, I think, 26 pitches. So you're in really good shape in terms of not wasting your bullpen over the weekend because of that starting pitching. Heading into today, heading into Texas A&M, the second game of Tuesday's single elimination round, I think you're going to go with a veteran bullpen arm. I believe it's going to be Seth Halverson. You know, things can change, but I think Seth Halverson will probably get the nod to get things going. Will he go 3, 4, 5 innings? I don't know. We'll see, but he started games in this league, a former #1 starter. Camden Sewell could be could be an option to come in behind him. He could be an option to start Wednesday, but I do not believe Tennessee will throw their starters, Lindsey, Dolander, Beam, on anything less than 5 days of rest. I don't think that's going to be the case. So, if you win today, looks like you're going to have to piece it together again tomorrow before you can hand the ball to Andrew Lindsay potentially on Thursday, Dolander on Friday. So it's going to be interesting. Of course, all that can change. It's tournament time. A lot of times you do what you need to do, but that's kind of what I think. I think Seth Halverson is likely to get the ball to start today. And, of course, you'll have Sewell, Burns, Russell, a lot of guys that can come to his aid.
Well, and they certainly need a good starting performance. I mean, you need to got to go deep because you don't want to burn all those arms on day one. I mean, you do whatever you can to win the game in advance. Don't get me wrong, but you would like to put yourself in a position that if you win the game on Wednesday, you've got some viable options. Tennessee's depth in the pitching staff has been talked about all season long. We're going to find out exactly what that looks like here over the course of the next couple of days. Jared Dickey gets back into the lineup. How big of a deal was that just to get him some at-bats before you get into tournament play, Eric?
It's big. Thought he could play all day Saturday, but they didn't want to risk it with a doubleheader and all that, even though he looked good in BP situations. Came on as a pinch hitter in Game 1, started and played the field in Game 2, which was huge. We knew that we'd probably see him with a bat in his hands before we saw him with a glove in the field. But like you said, just get him out there, back in a game-like situation, multiple at-bats, chasing fly balls in the outfield. That was really good to see. Jared Dickey is the best hitter on this baseball team, without a doubt. He's critical to be in that 3-hole, driving in runs, setting up bases, all that type of stuff. And he looked good swinging the bat. He nearly, just missed a 3-run home run on Saturday. I think he had a hit. He got, robbed of a couple. But great to have him back, the all-conference player for Tennessee. Huge because, he is just that. He's been the most consistent and the best hitter Tennessee has had all year long. When Moore would be up, then he's down. Burke would be up when he's down. Zane Denton would be up and he's down. Jared Dickey has been steady Eddie the whole year long. So getting him some action before potentially a gauntlet here this week, and of course regionals in 2 weeks or week after next, it's huge for Tennessee.
All right, so let me ask this one question: what do they need to do to host a region? How much success do they need in Hoover? And two, and any of you guys can jump in here if you want to. What do you think this team's mentality is in terms of playing in an elimination type game? Because, I mean, all year long it's been, well, win the series, try to get 2 or 3, right? Steal one here, do this, and it's okay. There's next weekend. It's kind of been the thought process by a lot of people, right? Don't panic. There's still a lot of baseball to play. Now you're in a point where if you don't take care of business this afternoon, there's no baseball left to play this week. How does this team handle kind of that mentality and that pressure, you think?
I'll answer the first part right here, then someone else can go. But for Tennessee to host a regional, and again, a lot can happen. Last year, Florida had 15 wins in conference, and it went on a run to Sunday, and it ended up hosting a regional. There was a team in the Southeastern Conference who had 18 wins, who did not host a regional last year. So, how much importance is this committee placing on the SEC tournament? We'll have to find out. I think personally, if Tennessee wins 2 games, slam dunk, slam the doors shut, Tennessee's hosting a regional. You're in the conversation right now entering the week. 16 wins, that's kind of the threshold, right? What do you do in Hoover? What does everybody else do? Because there's a couple of other teams like Auburn and a couple of other ones who are South Carolina who are also jockeying to host a regional. How many will they take from the SEC to host? We know that Vanderbilt and we know that Vanderbilt in Florida and a couple of those other top tier, LSU, Arkansas, they're all going to be hosting a regional. So we'll have to see. Tennessee enters the week with the 16th highest RPI, which is really, really good. I think if you win Tuesday, and I think if you win Wednesday, you're without a doubt hosting, but we will have to see.
What do you think about this team's mentality moving into winning you stay, losing you go home mode?
I think this team has evolved as the year's gone on. I don't think that earlier in the year, maybe midway through the year, that Tennessee was mature enough to kind of handle this. I thought Tennessee showed some guts on Saturday, right? The way you lost game 1 when Dolander was just shoving, and then the wheels fell off. He lost by 5 runs. 45 minutes. You had to flip the script you out and win 12-1 or whatever it was. I think that showed a lot. I think this team's grown up a lot. Is it perfect? No. There was only one rubber match all year long leading up to the, heading into the weekend, right? It was at Georgia 2 weeks ago. And then you had one on Saturday, and you won that one after losing the Georgia game. So not a whole lot of experience in, quote-unquote, winning the series on the final day. So it's kind of new territory. But I do think that the maturity level of this team has risen as the season's gone along. Christian Scott was always a leader, but he wasn't always playing, right? Now he's playing. Not only is he playing, he's one of your best players, especially in conference play. Cannon Sewell's that guy. Jared Dickey's that guy. We'll see how they handle it, but I think that they are, to answer your question, I think they're better now than they had been all year long to handle that type of situation, win or go home.
Oh, Christian Scott's a great story.
He is.
I'll be the first to admit he got put like when they were struggling in early SEC play. It felt like every time he came to the plate, there was 1 or 2 runners on, and it was just like they're blowing this, and he couldn't deliver. He couldn't deliver. And I remember at one point, like he came to the plate, and I was like, I just said out loud, I said, "Well, this is the end of the inning." I said, he's not who you want up. And my daughter, my youngest daughter, who Christian Scott came and read to her at the time, first grade class a year ago. Okay, she thinks Christian Scott hung the moon, and she was so mad at me. I'm going to tell Christian Scott what you said, blah, 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 blah. And since then, he has went on this. The key rakes. He's a legit threat in the back of the lineup. And
second highest batting average on the team in SEC play.
Yeah.
Let that resonate.
And a lot of it's post like the first 3 series, which tells you how much he really has been hitting the last 2/3 of the SEC season. He has really come on and doing it with some pop. What's he got, 7 home runs now for the year, Kane?
No.
He's just not somebody you think about that could be close to double-digit home runs, but yet there he is. He's come up clutch multiple times. He tied the game for him in the first game of the doubleheader the other day. Before they decided to pull Dolander and lose comfortably. But he is a phenomenal story.
Yeah, there's some good stories on this team, and I agree these guys have gotten better. But Rob, the reality is, you're getting tight ball games late in 6th, 7th, 8th inning. How does this team handle that situation? Their season's not over if they lose today. They're going to play. They're going to make a region now. They won't be hosting, but it's not going to be over. But how does this team handle that kind of pressure, or do we, as an outsider, am I overviewing or overanalyzing what that pressure is? It's just baseball at the end of the day.
No, I come at it much the way you do. However, I mean, Eric is certainly covers it a lot closer than I do, but I watch, I pay attention, I follow it, and just and it's probably not fair to compare anybody to last year's team, but it's just when you talk about those late inning high pressure situations, this group just feels a lot different. Not that they're not clutch or that they're not, that they shrink from the moment, but last year's group just, you just felt like they were going to get it done, no matter what, no matter what the odds were, how high the odds were stacked against them, whether that needed to come from the bullpen or whether you needed to, get 2 outs in the 7th inning. I mean, I just felt like that team embraced that stuff. And again, it's probably not fair because that group was, so historically good in those areas. But I think this team kind of suffers by comparison when you look at what it was like last year in the spring for Tennessee fans.
I'll close with this, guys. You never want to show up to the ballpark thinking you know everything about the game, because the way baseball is, baby, it'll humble you in a hurry. Having said that, Tennessee has figured out how to win games in just about every way this year, right? Coming from behind, blowing teams out, run rule, having a big lead, losing it, coming back, all that type of stuff. And finally, you win a series on the road. So at this point in the season, it's like, all right, we've kind of proven, for the most part, that you can win in a number of different ways. So just go out there and play, right? Just go out there and play. And so it'll be interesting to see what Tennessee looks like. 7th seed later today. Well, it's the second game today against 10th seeded Texas A&M. Looking like approximately 1:30 Eastern time. You know how these tournaments are. It might be a few minutes behind. If you win, you will take on Arkansas, the 2nd seed, in the second game on Wednesday, tomorrow. If you lose, you go home. You win 2 games in Hoover. I think, personally, my opinion, you're hosting a regional. You win 1 game and then kind of falter out after that. Maybe you lose today. Maybe you're still in the conversation, but there are some games, there are some things riding on these games in Hoover, and we'll have to see exactly what those arms look like as the week goes on. Tournament baseball should be exciting. You can follow along all week long over at Volquest.com. Hey, appreciate you guys for tuning in to the Volquest podcast. For Brent Hubbs, Rob Lewis, Austin Price, I am Eric Kane. As always, subscribe to Volquest on the YouTube channel. If you haven't joined our family over at Volquest.com, what are you waiting on? Best recruiting information, best coverage of Tennessee football, basketball, baseball that you're going to find. And, of course, always conversations happening on the General's Quarters. A big thank you to Exterior Home Solutions for making this coverage possible. Give them a call today for a free estimate. Anything you need to improve your home, 865-524-5888. Again, guys, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody.